she used the California law as background for her dismissal.
Blake Lively is throwing a full-blown tantrum after the judge smacked down her latest legal stunt.
It's a huge risk, and so it's not a fair fight. They're going into this with uneven risks on either side.
She's now hiding behind California's MeToo law to escape a defamation case she sparked.
It's just that in this case, it looks abusive.
Meanwhile, Ryan Reynolds, he straight up manipulated his 7-year-old daughter into delivering a disgusting line in Deadpool and Wolverine.
He's basically looking at his 7-year-old and being like, well, if you're not gonna have what it takes to read this line, which happens to be about, you know, Wolverine's penis, then I'll just go find another actor. Total sicko, the exact opposite in my viewpoint.
The center of this twisted circus is sexual harassment claims, explosive defamation countersuits, and a court system trying to figure out how to apply a brand new law while Hollywood stars cry victim with personal stylists on speed dial.
Blake has expectedly filed to be dismissed from the lawsuit against her. Her argument that she is presenting is that the lawsuit in and of itself is illegal, okay, because the matter at hand is pertaining to sexual harassment.
It all snowballed after California's new MeToo law, that's Code of Civil Procedure 547.1 became official on January 1st, 2020.
This MeToo law out here in California, Code of Civil Procedure 47.1, is a problem for the Baldoni camp.
How big of a problem is it?
And that law? Oh, it's basically the golden armor for anyone looking to launch allegations without wanting a lawsuit biting them in the ass.
She wants the court to use California law. That's her argument. And every federal court has to deal with these conflict of law issues that we call them.
Blake filed a motion to dismiss Baldoni's defamation countersuit. Her weapon of choice? California's shiny new MeToo Shield law. This law is like giving someone a free hall pass to accuse you of something and then slam the courtroom door in your face when you try to defend yourself.
And they want us to believe that Justin Baldoni is the creep in all of this. This is running parallel to him shouting at Justin Baldoni in a penthouse about his wife being uncomfortable.
And it works, because Baldoni now has to prove actual malice. That's right. He doesn't just need to prove she lied. He has to prove she knowingly lied, maliciously, with bad intent. Good luck with that in court when the legal equivalent of gaslighting is now protected by statute.
California law relative to the lawsuit against Lively for defamation is a little problematic. So we have not seen the opposition yet that the Wayfair parties are going to make to the motion to dismiss filed by Lively, but I suspect that they're going to want New York over California law. We'll see what they do.
But is it valid though? If the judge says, yes, you can use California law in this instant, could they dismiss his case because of that?
And it's not just about losing. If he doesn't win this, he has to pay her legal fees, her probably very expensive legal fees, plus punitive damages, plus maybe triple damages. So not only does he lose his name, he loses his wallet, his company, and probably his will to ever speak in public again.
But here's the real problem for him, and our concern for Baldoni is if he goes forward and he loses his countersuit based on defamation, there's a huge risk to him because he then has to pay Lively's attorney's fees, treble damages, punitive damages. It's a huge risk.
Blake's team, in the most gaslighty move of the century, argued that Baldoni himself admitted that she believed her own story. That's it. That's their argument. She believed it, so it can't be malicious. Right. Because delusion now equals innocence?
It requires Baldoni to prove a higher burden than he would otherwise have to prove in this defamation lawsuit. So he actually has to show that Blake Lively's, anything she said, any communication she made about SH, that they were made in malice. And so that's a higher standard that he has to prove.
The public's not buying it. People see what this is. A Hollywood powerhouse, not some underpaid assistant, is using laws created to protect vulnerable victims as a shield. Laws designed for those without a voice are now being wielded by people with red carpet handlers and brand deals. The optics? Disgusting. It's like watching someone use a food bank donation box to store their leftover caviar.
It's a problem that wouldn't be there if they had done this lawsuit a year and a half ago. So this is a brand new law. And what it does is it requires Baldoni to prove a higher burden than he would otherwise have to prove in this defamation lawsuit.
But you know who needs to be dragged through the mud harder than anyone? Ryan Reynolds. Yes, everyone's favorite charming, quick-witted human Twitter thread. But under that PR-polished smirk is something a little darker. Let's go straight to the unhinged cherry on top. The Deadpool dad disaster.
And then the jury has to look at the totality of that evidence and say, is that malice? And there's certainly evidence that would lead one to believe a jury could find that.
Reynolds casts his 7-year-old daughter, 7, in the next Deadpool film. Because sure, Deadpool is definitely where you want your child making her acting debut. But it gets worse. Much worse.
Absolutely no person, I don't care how funny you think you are in Hollywood, would want their precious daughter, of all people, to make comments about Hugh Jackman's penis being in their father's mouth.
One of the lines? A comment about Hugh Jackman's penis being in her dad's mouth. No, that's not a joke I made up. That's literally the line. And the girl didn't want to say it because, you know, she's 7 and still has some functioning moral compass. But what did Papa Reynolds do? Did he say, "Okay, sweetie, we'll skip that line"? No. He told her that if she didn't say it, he'd recast her. Recast his own daughter. Blackmail, but make it parental.
You have to investigate any further because there is no father in his right mind who would want a scene in which his daughter makes a, I guess, homosexual joke about the relationship between him and this Wolverine character who we're starting to have questions about their relationship in real life.
He fully admits this on tape, like it's some kind of funny anecdote. As if emotionally coercing your child to say something sexually explicit in a superhero film is peak dad humor. And then we've got director Sean Levy casually chiming in that they made her do 70 to 500 versions of that line. Sorry, 500 takes of your own daughter saying something that disturbing? That's not filming. That's psychological warfare.
When I started looking at other people to play
Yeah,
it.
but Ryan, to our discredit, we made Nezzy do I'm not you 70 to 500 versions of that line.
Yeah, I'm gonna pay for that later.
And here's where it becomes comically disgusting. This same man, this Hollywood icon of dad jokes and aviation gin, has the audacity to label Justin Baldoni a predator. He runs around calling Baldoni a predator while literally pushing his daughter to deliver lines about male genitalia on camera for laughs. If irony had a physical form, it would punch this man in the face.
And that's what he says. So he kind of basically forced his daughter to do the line, or else he's going to replace her as an actress in this movie. She's 7 years old, you guys.
And let's not forget his 12B6 legal filing. Most legal motions are dry, procedural things, but not Ryan's. His was so hostile, so aggressive, so over the top, it felt like he was trying to win a courtroom roast battle. It didn't even read like a lawyer wrote it.
No, it won't get dismissed at the 12B6 phase because Brian Friedman will be able to plead around by doing a second amended complaint, and he'll be able to outline, you know, the claims of actual malice and that she wasn't reasonable when she reported this harassment.
It read like Ryan himself sat down and said, "Let's write the meanest, most self-righteous pile of garbage ever filed in court." And honestly, mission accomplished. He didn't just want to get the lawsuit dismissed. He wanted to publicly humiliate Baldoni while doing it.
Those are not points that a judge decides. Those are not legal determinations. Those are factual determinations. And we leave all of our factual decisions to a fact finder. In this case, that'll be a jury. So Brian Friedman more than likely will get past this phase.
The man whose Deadpool persona bleeds into his parenting and legal strategy is not someone anyone should be romanticizing. The PR machine might try to spin it, but facts are facts. He used his own daughter like a prop. He turned a workplace dispute into a public smear, and he weaponized his fame in ways that make villains in his own movies look like choir boys.
Hey, when I want your opinion, I'll take Wolverine's out of your mouth.
That's kid.
Guiltily, that is my daughter,
I'm
Inez.
so sorry we have to admit that.
And I am Father of the Year over here for allowing her to say such language.
So no, Ryan Reynolds isn't the quirky, lovable underdog here. He's the top of the Hollywood food chain, throwing punches and hiding behind snark. And now, thanks to receipts, audio clips, and an internet full of people who've had enough, the mask is slipping. Fast. Let's talk about Ryan Reynolds. Or should I say, the smiling assassin of Hollywood. This guy built an entire brand on being quirky, charming, and self-aware. Oh look, he made a joke. Oh wow, he's trolling Hugh Jackman again. How funny. Except, behind the scenes, the mask is slipping faster than his daughter's innocence in that Deadpool disaster. His PR persona might have sold you a few gin bottles and laughably unfunny superhero movies. But what's happening off-screen is giving full villain origin story.
That is just unbelievable. He is admitting that she was not, Nezzy, as she is called, was not comfortable doing this line. And Ryan essentially said to her that I'm gonna find another actor, which is pointedly ridiculous.
Because apparently, the lovable funny guy loses all that lovable when the cameras stop rolling. Behind closed doors, Reynolds is reportedly raging, manipulative, and straight up vindictive. We're talking screaming matches in penthouses, accusing Justin Baldoni of being a predator. Not in court, not in public, but in closed conversations with WME executives. He didn't say it because he believed it. He said it because he could, because he had the power. It's the Hollywood version of Mean Girls, and Ryan is Regina George in a designer suit.
Ryan Reynolds' statement, as contained in the allegations, is that he went and called Baldoni a predator. I mean, that is just such an over-the-top statement, and it does, just in its own right, seems malicious.
And if that wasn't enough, let's dive into the now infamous knife pool character. Yeah, let's not pretend that was just clever satire. Reynolds played that character in Deadpool, a twisted, sleazy version of someone, and later admitted it was based on Justin Baldoni. But sure, it's just art, right?
I think that the Deadpool scene, the knife pool scene in Deadpool, would be relevant here. I think that that backs up the whole idea of malice and what the intent was of Ryan Reynolds in the statements that he was making. Whether or not, you're not going to be able to get every little interview that Ryan Reynolds ever did where you try to kind of show that he's a bad character. A lot of that would not come in.
Just a funny coincidence that the guy he's mocking in interviews, dragging in private, and attacking in court just so happens to have his likeness plastered all over a nasty parody in a billion-dollar franchise. That's not meta. That's malice with a makeup budget.
Judge allows, this is what we call character evidence, and it's trying to impugn someone's character based upon their past acts in unrelated matters. But if it becomes a focal issue in the case, the judge will let certain evidence in so the jury can see that.
The jokes aren't jokes. The jabs aren't satire. They're grudges wrapped in sarcasm, paraded around as comedy. And Reynolds is the kind of guy who loves to throw a rock, hide his hand, then do a smirk for the camera.
Yeah, now he admitted, you're talking about Nice Pool, and now he admitted that Nice Pool was based on Justin Baldoni, which shows that that must be actual malice.
He doesn't just fight back, he orchestrates entire narratives and gets away with it because everyone's too busy laughing at his tweets. But make no mistake, he's been standing on the shoulders of Hollywood power brokers like Ari Emanuel for years. It's easy to punch down when your buddies run the industry and your enemies get blacklisted for daring to push back. Speaking of punching down, let's talk about the New York Times. Because this isn't just a case of celebrity drama anymore. This has turned into a full-on operation. Baldoni's team says the Times didn't just report the story, they co-wrote it. They accused the Times of colluding with Blake Lively before she even filed her CRD complaint. That's like writing the Yelp review before you even visit the restaurant. Emails, metadata, pre-release drafts, the receipts are coming in hot.
And the arguments that Blake is making and that he is making in the CRD complaints against Justin Baldoni.
And here's the deal. That kind of collusion kills the fair reporting privilege the Times normally hides behind. You know, the one that says, we're just reporting what was filed, don't sue us. Not when you're in the kitchen cooking the whole thing with the chef before the ingredients even hit the pan. That's not journalism. That's public relations. And not the honest kind. That's, let's destroy someone's reputation with just enough paperwork to pretend we're neutral.
He can defend himself all day long. We want to make that very clear. If he gets past the 12B6 phase, which we anticipate he will, he can vigorously defend himself with any and all facts that are in the case. The problem happened was when he sued her for defamation in response to her claims of SH against him, which triggered the new MeToo law, which was effective January 1 of 2024 in California. And boy, is it a concern in my mind for the Baldoni camp.
Brian Friedman, Baldoni's attorney, wasn't playing. Legal experts have literally called his filings phenomenally sharp, and for good reason. He's blowing holes in this fake neutrality and dragging the Times into the ring where they belong. For once, the mighty New York Times might not get to just report the destruction of someone's name. They may actually have to answer for helping to build the wrecking ball.
Brian Friedman won't come out and say that publicly. I mean, they would probably wait until a court told them they couldn't bring that case forward.
And California law might actually be on Baldoni's side here. Ironic, considering how that same state law is stabbing him in the back in Blake's dismissal attempt. But consistency is a luxury in these cases. The legal system will have to decide if this law applies evenly to both Lively and the Times. It won't. Hollywood always plays favorites, and if you think Ryan and Blake don't have media strings they can pull, you're adorable.
And also, if New York law were to apply versus California law applying, that would also change my analysis, because maybe the New York law, I'm sure the New York law is much more friendly on the Me Too issues than California law is.
Now let's get into the queen pin of PR chaos, Stephanie Jones. Oh yeah, this woman could teach a course in betrayal. Her firm, Jones Work PR, was supposed to be repping Wayfarer, Justin Baldoni's company, but instead of protecting her clients' interests, she apparently decided to become Blake and Ryan's personal informant. That's right. According to a lawsuit, she got her hands on confidential communications by seizing the phone of her own employee, Jennifer Ale, right before she left the firm in August 2023. Not suspicious at all, right?
The audio of that dancing scene, I mean, that was a huge moment for me to see that Blake Lively's claims appeared to be misstated, overstated, just wrong. And of course the text messages as well. So I think there's a lot of evidence.
And we're not talking about simple screenshots. Jones had security, legal counsel, and even a forensic data expert ready. It was a full extraction mission. And guess what magically appeared in Lively's CRD complaint and that NYT hit piece? Yep, those same messages and documents. Except now they were altered. Nothing screams credibility like a digital trail of manipulated documents handed over after a corporate-style phone raid.
But you would imagine that she would file the CRD in California in order to strengthen her argument that California law should apply, because this code section that we have is so liberal for protecting any communication about SH.
Stephanie Jones built her career on being feared in Hollywood. She had A-list clients like Dwayne Johnson, Lauren Sanchez, and reportedly even Tom Brady. But now, one by one, they're walking away. Why? Maybe because Hollywood finally realized that the woman you hire to manage a PR crisis shouldn't be the PR crisis. She was once untouchable. Now she's untouchable in the other direction. No one wants to get caught in her blast radius. But here's why all this matters. Because what Ryan Reynolds and Blake Lively tried to sell the world is this idea that Baldoni is some manipulative, creepy power player.
I would really focus in on Ryan Reynolds. I mean, he's a deep pocket. It sounds like he said something very, it was a strong statement to call somebody a predator. That's going to be for the jury to determine if, that leads to the level of defamation and leads to damages.
And yet, behind the curtain, it's their team, orchestrating media takedowns, leaking altered messages, threatening children with recasting, and labeling co-workers as predators to their Hollywood buddies.
And it does, just in its own right, seems malicious. And it's one thing if it was based on some true statement, some conviction or something like that. But to walk around calling other people a predator, especially in Hollywood, where, the Me Too movement was so huge and it's such a hot topic.
Reynolds didn't just weaponize his influence. He handed the gun to his PR team, the press, and his own wife, then acted shocked when people noticed the bodies. And it all ties back. Ryan Reynolds didn't just play Deadpool, he became him. Sarcastic, brutal, ruthless. Except in real life, there are no camera cuts. And the people he hurts don't get to respawn in a sequel. There's nothing funny about smearing someone's name, using your own child as a pawn, or feeding journalists edited documents. There's nothing heroic about threatening people behind the scenes while smiling for the public.
Extra gratuitous that wasn't in the initial script, and what they're perfectly fine with. And this, you add this to the fact that he slapped a child extra gratuitously, that all he believes is riffing. Now you're hearing from the director of his film that they made the 7-year-old do this line from 70 to 500 times.
So when Reynolds calls someone a predator, remember, this is the same guy who forced his daughter to joke about male genitals, the same guy who mocks co-workers in billion-dollar films, and the same guy who hides behind jokes while firing shots at people trying to defend themselves.
But rather than just using an AI tool for his daughter or using a voice actor for her to say that line that she was uncomfortable saying, he basically says, oh, well, I started looking at different actors and actresses. And then that's when she said, I do want to do it. Wildly manipulative to do to a 7-year-old kid.
The real predator isn't the one defending his name. It's the one making sure he owns the narrative before the truth gets a chance. Let's talk about Ari Emanuel. Yeah, the guy who used to be the most powerful man in Hollywood. The one who practically built WME with his bare hands and a god complex.
He can defend himself all day long. We want to make that very clear. If he gets past the 12B6 phase, which we anticipate he will, he can vigorously defend himself with any and all facts that are in the case.
If there was ever a poster child for unchecked power, it was Ari. But guess what? The Hollywood kingmaker just got his crown yanked off. And why? Because he decided to turn loyalty into a weapon and fired Justin Baldoni for no professional reason whatsoever.
Admitted that he fired Justin Baldoni because he could, and he was made fun of him. Baldoni, Baloney, whatever his name is, I'm loyal. And I'm loyal to Blake Lively, and I'm loyal to Ryan Reynolds, and so I just bossed it and fired him for no reason.
No misconduct, no breach of contract. Nope. Just a personal vendetta fueled by his allegiance to Ryan Reynolds and Blake Lively. He literally said on the Freakonomics podcast, the one that mysteriously never aired, I can do it, so I did it. Bravo, Ari. That's not power, that's petty.
No, it's none of those things, but I'm powerful and I'm Ari Emanuel, my brother's Rahm Emanuel, and he bankrupted Chicago, and we've been acting like gangsters, and so we're just gonna fire Justin Baldoni. Well, he did that, and now it looks like he's being pushed out of Endeavor.
Imagine being so comfortable in your throne that you admit to retaliatory firing on a podcast like it's a badge of honor. Except, people were recording. That offhand quote might actually become one of the most damning pieces of evidence in Baldoni's defamation case. You just told the world that your decision was based on loyalty, not logic. So yeah, Ari didn't just fire Baldoni. He may have handed Baldoni's legal team a gift-wrapped check with the words damages claim stamped on it.
Because he was the most powerful person in Hollywood. Another reason why I believe that Ryan Reynolds and Blake Lively felt so confident in everything that they were doing, because they had this guy behind him and they knew that he would just fire someone on a whim or on an allegation.
And poetic justice didn't wait long. After Silver Lake came in swinging with their $25 billion acquisition of Endeavor in early 2025, Ari was asked, and by asked we mean shoved, to give up his CEO role at WME. That's not just a career change. That's a cosmic slap.
Also, Ari Emanuel, Mr. Baloney Baldoni, is no longer the CEO of WME Endeavor.
The man who once decided who thrived and who vanished in Hollywood is now sitting on the sidelines watching the game he rigged get dismantled. Symbolic payback? Oh, absolutely. Karma showed up in a designer suit and kicked the door down.
So it looks like another one of Blake and Ryan's dragons is going down. He's been accidentally slayed.
And the ripple effect is glorious. With Ari out, Reynolds and Lively lose one of their biggest safety nets. The guy who would casually ruin careers with a phone call is no longer holding the strings. That's a power vacuum with a whole lot of accountability rushing in. Baldoni's case just got stronger, not just because of the quote, but because it confirms what we already suspected. This was never about justice. It was about friendships, grudges, and cliques. Hollywood high school, but with billion-dollar stakes.
They wanted this guy out as a condition of them doing this $25 billion deal. He now will still be chairing, so he will obviously have some capacity of power still, sitting as a chairperson of WME.
Now let's take a second to address the hilarious joke Lively's legal team tried to pass off in court. We didn't lie, we just didn't tell the whole truth. That's lying by omission, and we've seen this script before. And then we have the finale, the Hollywood house of cards starting to fall. This entire lawsuit has exposed something way uglier than a workplace dispute.
I really do think Baldoni and his crew should shift to just vigorously defending themselves against Blake Lively and maybe consider dropping the defamation claim now.
It's shown how fame, press connections, and industry power are actively being used to ruin people's lives. Reynolds, who was once the internet's favorite funny guy, is now looking like the final boss of hypocrisy. He's the kind of guy who forces his kid to say vile lines on camera, bullies people behind the scenes, then plays victim in the public square. Sorry, but calling someone a predator while acting like one behind closed doors doesn't make you brave. It makes you delusional.
Like, it is just stunning to me what they view as harassment, what they view as, forcing someone to do something, an extra gratuitous that wasn't in the initial script.
And don't even get me started on Lively's strategic use of California's new MeToo law. That law was designed to protect actual victims, not to act as a legal force field for celebrities who want to sling accusations without consequences. She's not some powerless underdog. She's a multi-millionaire actress backed by Hollywood's elite, twisting a victim-centered law into her personal PR weapon. And people are starting to see through it. The narrative is shifting. For the first time, the media and the public are asking real questions. Why were these accusations coordinated so closely with PR drops? Why are internal messages missing key context? Why is the alleged predator being blacklisted while the accusers laugh about manipulating their kids for film dialogue? None of this adds up, unless you see it for what it really is, a hit job disguised as a victim narrative.
Hot topic, but once you start saying that somebody's a predator, you're doing it because you want to harm them, and it just feels very malicious to me.
From leaked emails and metadata to phone raids and podcast confessions, the evidence is piling up. And it's not painting Reynolds and Lively as heroes. It's exposing them as manipulators who use their fame and media ties to bulldoze reputations and silence dissent. And now that the machine is breaking down, they're scrambling to keep the illusion alive.
But what we're talking about is the countersuit for defamation, and it's because California law puts a big barrier and a big risk on the Baldoni side for that. They might accept that risk. They might say, that's fine by us, we're willing to move forward.
But the tide is turning. The blind loyalty, the media collusion, the smug courtroom filings, it's all losing its shine. And the best part? Nobody's above it anymore. Reynolds can't meme his way out of this. Lively can't legally gaslight her way to safety. Ari Emanuel can't muscle the narrative back in line from a boardroom he no longer runs. The truth has entered the chat, and for once, Hollywood might not be able to script the ending. And that's just the beginning. Subscribe now so you don't miss the next twist in this insane saga.